welcome back to GORDYS GASBAGS. We're cruising through the week. We've hit Wednesday, hump day, although really who cares what day it is in the midst of COVID? It doesn't seem to matter. Corona's still hanging about. I can't believe we've gone to the 1-5 episode, and a really special one for me because this is someone I have not seen or caught up with for a bloody long time. Sharon Finnan-White. Oh my God, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Sue Gordian.
When do you reckon the last time was we caught up?
I don't know. I think I might have just seen you at one of the games or whatever, but I know we were at the AIS together back in 1988.
89 it was, 89, yep.
Yeah, so that's probably the last time we've sort of had any real connection. But yeah, other than that, well, I've gone, you know, my separate way and, you know, still involved in netball, but yeah, haven't crossed paths with you for a while.
So you're living up in Townsville now, and what's the temperature there today? Just make us all feel like...
It is hot. Like, I'm waiting. It's April, you know, we're heading into sort of mid to late April, and I thought it would have cooled down by now, but we're getting still up in the 31s every day up here.
Oh, really?
Aircon's still on inside. Yeah, so it's I'm waiting for it to just ease off a little bit.
And how long have you been up in Townsville for now?
It's probably around about 6 years. Met my husband. He works here as a paediatrician at the hospital, and yeah, so it was a decision to either stay in Cairns where I was living at the time or move down here. And I figured that his job was probably a little bit more important than mine, and you know, hard decision to leave Cairns. And you know, it's where my boys sort of did all their schooling. It's not where I'm from originally, obviously from Sydney originally, but ended up in Cairns at some stage, and yeah, made the big move down here, and glad I did, because, you know, I've got a nice network of friends down here now, and, you know, enjoying it.
Oh, so, I mean, I think it's one of the most beautiful parts of Australia, to be blatantly honest with you. I love that neck of northern Queensland. Hey, let's go back. Let's go way back. That's what I feel.
But I'll give it a go.
I feel like I say that to everyone. Let's go back. So we hung out in Canberra at the AIS in 89, and straight off the back of that year, Sharon, you debuted for Australia in 1990. That's a pretty extraordinary step, because I think Carissa Toms, I don't know if I'm exact, but she was one of the youngsters that came straight out of Canberra and straight into the Aussie team, as did you.
Yes, that's true. However, I was a little bit older. My first year at the AIS, I was 21, you know, so I was a lot older than the other girls. And I was labelled a late bloomer back then, because I didn't go through the under-17s and under-19 system like a lot of the girls do now. And I'm trying to rack my brain as to why that was, you know, whether I just wasn't aware of the pathway, or whether I didn't want to trial for those age groups. But, you know, then I went straight into 21s and then opens for New South Wales. So,
did you play another sport?
No, like netball was pretty, like at school, yeah, you know, I tried everything, but netball was the sport that I sort of loved. And then when I, you know, started making rep teams, it was, you know, that the rest is history. So, but yeah, like I was a little shocked to sort of go straight into the 1990 Commonwealth Games team, which we were a demonstration sport, you know, that year. Yeah, I think Marg Corbett coached that team as well. So she was, you know, my New South coach for many years, and a really wonderful experience. You know, we didn't get to stay in the village with all the other athletes, but we did get a sneak peek and had a little bit of a visit there. And it was just a one game against New Zealand, you know, so we didn't really get to play a lot of matches.
But still would have been a pretty extraordinary moment, because we'll go on to 91 in just a second, and already through GORDYS GASBAGS, it's becoming pretty evident that was a very, very significant moment in netball's history, that 91 World Cup in Sydney. But to be a part of a demonstration sport at a Commonwealth Games, was there a real sense at that time, Sharon? Did you think that maybe netball was starting to be noticed?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it was a huge crowd. It was in Auckland. And yeah, I just remember being so excited about the fact that it was the Commonwealth Games, and it was the first time ever netball had been there. So, but to be a part of that was something really special. And then, you know, I guess sort of things just continued on for me after that. But, you know, it was a bit of a rocky road for me. I think my story is a little bit different to a lot of the girls that you've spoken to so far, in that, you know, as you said, the 91 world champs, you know, came next, but, you know, I was named as a reserve for that team. Sorry, the 91. So I missed out on the team originally, but I was actually named as a reserve, and I was actually called into the team late to replace Sue Kenny for that final against New Zealand. So that was quite nerve-wracking.
So just talk us through that. So how did that, because back then, so you could, if there was an injury, you could ring up and bring someone in. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So, and I was a little bit sort of surprised that I was called in, to be honest, because, you know, Sue Kenny is a centre court player. And, you know, obviously people who know me know that I played in the defence end. So, but, you know, I put it down to the fact that Joyce Brown at the time had sort of earmarked me as a centre court player as well. And she had been trialling me in that position. And I remember playing a game against Jamaica in centre. She just threw me in there in one of our practice matches. And the thing about Joyce and what I loved about her is that she made you feel like she had every confidence in you, you know, and so for her to just throw me on there and believe that I could do the job, well, I sort of believed it myself. So yeah, it was good.
Marcia Ella was the first Indigenous person to play netball for Australia. Were you the second?
Second and last, Sue, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and I'll talk to you about that in a second, but you were the second, weren't you?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, what an absolute honour. And we'll talk about where you're at and what you're doing in the world of I guess, netball, you know, and the pathway in a second. But so go back to 91. You talk about Joyce. Tell me a little bit about Joyce Brown. I haven't asked a lot about Joycey through. I should really get her on, but I'm too bloody nervous of her, so it's not worth my 30 minutes.
Well, that's where I was going to start, talking about how nervous she made people, but like in a good way. You know, like I remember going to training camps at the AIS, and, you know, everyone would be warmed up, strapped, ready to go before she walked in the door, because if you weren't, look out, you know, you'd hear that loud voice of hers, you know. So we had so much respect, but also we were very scared of her as well. But she really did have a big impact on my career in terms of giving me that confidence to believe that I could be whoever I wanted to be on the court. Joyce also, you know, I don't know if you know this, but we travelled over to South Africa together as well. I can't remember what year it was, but she invited me over to help her work with the South African team. And that was a real experience. I got to know Joyce on a personal level. And I also got to sort of get a better understanding of what was happening in South Africa at the time, in terms of, you know, the black athletes and their position within the team and all that sort of thing. And, you know, I had a really good connection with those girls, and they really opened up to me in terms of what their challenges were over there, which were very similar to our Indigenous girls here. So, and I'm pretty sure that's why Joyce took me over there. So, you know, we had a great time. Yeah,
they broke the mould with Joyce Brown, didn't they?
Absolutely. But, you know, I still think of some of the things that she, you know, told me in terms of my training. And I don't know what other girls do, but, you know, sometimes I feel when I get out there and do my walks and my runs or whatever, trying to keep fit, that some things pop into my head that Joyce used to say, you know, and I'm like, why am I thinking about that now? I don't need to, you know, but that's the impact she had on me, you know. So,
however many years later, you know, a coach has had an impact when she's still sitting on your shoulder when you're going for a jog.
I know, it's not a good thing, I guess, in a way, but you know, little netball stays with you forever. I think, you know, once you retire, you're always connected.
And let's go back to, because, you know, I knew you as a goal defence. You trained predominantly as a goal defence in our days in Canberra, and I think Joyce was well ahead of her time in that kind of transitioning an athlete from position to position. You didn't just go from goal defence to wing defence. You skipped almost. I mean, you did play a bit of time in wing defence, but I just remember waking up in 1990 and watching you put on the C-bib. And I mean, because I knew you and I felt for you, because what a transition.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I felt for myself as well. It was it was bloody hard. But, you know, then I kind of thought, well, you know, I was listening to Carissa speak the other day about, you know, being smart when you play centre, that you don't have to take every ball. So I tried that strategy, and it seemed to work. But yeah, it was a challenge. You know, I stepped out of my comfort zone to do that. But and I think the reason why Joyce did that at the time was we did have a shortage of centre court players coming through that era. You know, Carissa and Shelley were kind of like it. at the time. And forgive me if I've forgotten anyone that was around during that time, but I know that she was trying to bring more centre court players through because we did have a bit of a shortage of them.
What did you enjoy more, back in the circle or out in the middle?
I think definitely back in the circle just because that's where I was comfortable, but I did enjoy getting out and attacking the ball more because I feel that, you know, in defence you're kind of just chasing the whole time, and it was really nice to just get out and run and have someone chase me for a change.
Yeah, and have a bit of freedom, isn't it?
A bit of freedom and show a bit of flair, and because, you know, I think my game was one of those styles where I was pretty much a one-on-one kind of player, and I never really came off the body to go for the specky intercepts, and you know, and that sometimes gets overlooked, you know, when you put in that hard groundwork. You know, a lot of people don't recognise that, you know, the broader community watching a game may not recognise that. So I wasn't really one of those specky players. I just tried to try and keep that goal attack out of the circle as best as I can, and by the time she got into the ring to shoot, she was pretty stuffed.
Well, we should hook you up with Maddie Turner. Bryony Akel, the Swiss coach who we spoke with last night, actually spoke about Maddie Turner being a bit of an unsung hero, someone that just works the ground and doesn't necessarily get the accolades of some of the other players. But, you know, she's made her way into the Aussie side, so it'll be interesting to watch. But two quite similar in what you're talking about. Yeah,
and that's good. It's great because, you know, I mean, we need diversity within our teams. You know, we can't all be taking the specky intercepts and, you know, doing the hard work. You know, you've got to put that hard work in as well. And, so, you know, it was good to be known, I guess, as someone who had that kind of attribute.
In terms of all of your netball career, who did you most enjoy playing or hooking up in the defensive circle with as a goalkeeper goal defence combination?
Definitely Keely. Yeah. Because, you know, we had, I can't remember if it was 9 or 10 years, but, you know, our New South Wales team during that era, we had, you know, 9 or 10 consecutive national titles, and we had the same team for so long, and you know, it was pretty much a team full of Australian players. So no wonder, you know, we were so successful, having Marg Corbett there sort of for pretty much all of that time. So Keely and I really developed a really good understanding of one another, and had a lot of fun in the process. And, you know, a lot of the time we didn't even have to talk. We just knew what each other was doing.
Well, that's a great defensive combination. I've, you know, Liz Ellison spent some time with her, and and she often used to say, you know, when you can just mimic someone else, or you know what someone else is going to do inside the circle when you're not even speaking, that's when you know you've really formed your combination, and, you know, and that things are going to work and unfold naturally.
Definitely. And like, you know, when Liz came into the picture as a youngster, I remember, you know, I guess us I know I certainly saw her as a bit of a threat because she was so good. And I remember one time at Nationals in Tasmania, for the very first time I got dragged off the court and Liz came on, and, you know, I wasn't very happy about it, and, you know, I sort of didn't react very well to that, and I thought, well, you know, maybe my time has come, you know, changing at the guard. But, you know, when Liz and I were on there together, you know, we certainly had that combination down pat as well. And, you know, it was great to play with tall goalkeepers because, you know, I was kind of considered short back then for a goal defence, which is probably why I got pushed out to the wing. But having those tall goalkeepers there to take those rebounds was pretty awesome.
Have you told me beforehand that you've been watching a few of these GORDY Gasbags, and you probably haven't caught up with a lot of the girls. Has it been nice to sort of see everybody and hear from them, and has it sort of, I guess, jogged the memory a little bit about a few things?
Yeah, it has. It is nice to see everyone. Like Nikki Cusack sort of lives down near where my mum is, down near that Gold Coast area, sort of on that border there. So, like, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, we caught up when I was visiting mum. But, you know, I caught up with Keely at one of the SSN games as well. Sue Kenny was over here one time watching her daughter play water polo here in Townsville, so we caught up as well. You know, I still see some of the girls on Facebook, you know, Facebook friends, so, you know, don't always keep in touch, but we see what's going on in each other's lives. So it did jog a few things, but I was trying to think, because I'm thinking you're going to ask me some questions about, you know, what went on, and I was trying to wrap my brain because it's so long ago, you know.
I think, I mean, funnily enough, after we finished recording this, often I've finished with someone and they're like, gosh, that just reminded me of this story or that story. So, you know, if that's what it's doing for you guys, I hope you're enjoying it. Do you watch a bit of Suncourt Super Netball now?
Yeah, I do actually. I do enjoy watching it when I have time. It's certainly way different to when we used to play. Like, these girls are tremendous athletes. Not saying we weren't, but they look absolutely fantastic. That, you know, you can see they're putting the hard work in, and you know, deserve the recognition and you know, the rewards that they get. And you know, it's fantastic to see it broadcasted so widely now. You know, like, when it first started on TV, ABC, you know, back in the day when we started playing, and that was a big thing as well. But, you know, the crowds that Suncorp are pulling in are just amazing.
You captained the Firebirds, didn't you?
Yeah, so I captained when Vicky retired. I captained the Firebirds for a couple of years. And I had another Indigenous player with me, Helena Saunders, who was my vice captain. Yeah, so we, from memory, I think we were the only two Indigenous players in the league at that time, in the National League. So, yeah, so I did captain the Firebirds, and also captain, from memory, the Australian B team.
Yes.
Or when they had the President's 12, when Norma was coaching, I've captained that side as well. So that was a nice honour.
That wasn't the time that you beat Australia, was it?
Potentially, yes. I think it was when we were wearing those purple dresses. So, yes, I think we did beat them in one of the games. So that's pretty nice.
That was a good concept by Netball Australia.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe we picked the wrong players.
I remember that, Chaz. Absolutely. What a classic. Fun times.
Yeah. No, it's really some really good memories of netball. And, you know, as you can see, I've strategically placed some lovely photos here of our World Championship win, 99, and this here is my show and tell piece, because I know a few others had show and tell, but Vicky Wilson and
I love it.
I can't remember who else. It could have been Janine Illich, because she was a good buddy of mine as well in the team, and we went shopping through Christchurch, and we saw these amazing little statues, and we thought, oh, well, let's get one each, and we've engraved it World Championships Christchurch 99. So yeah, there's a few of us that have our own little trophy.
What a well, speaking of Janine Illich, she will be coming up on a GORDYS Gasbags sometime. So do you keep in touch with her?
Yeah, no, most recently we have been keeping in touch, and last night I couldn't sleep. A couple of nights I haven't been able to sleep for whatever reason, and I just got on Facebook and I saw Janine posting things at 2 and 3 in the morning, and I'm like, you can't sleep either? And I'm like, she's like, no, I can't. So even last night we're up at 2 or 3 in the morning, just, you know, talking to one another on Facebook, and she said to me, she said, if Gordy asks you a question about, you know, something funny that happened on tour, she goes, you know, you could bring up us doing the Macarena and me, you know, just completely stuffing it up and our whole team laughing at us. But yeah, Janine and I.
Who stuffed up the Macarena, you or her?
No, Janine. She went the wrong way, or everyone else went that way.
That doesn't surprise me. Janine stuffed up just about everything.
She was funny. She really was a great teammate to tour with. We had many good conversations, and so it's good to keep in touch.
Who do you find yourself supporting in Suncorp Super Netball, being the fact that you I guess your upbringing has all been through New South Wales and the Sandpipers, because you played for the Sandpipers, didn't you? Yeah, Sandpipers.
Sydney Electricity.
Yep, Sydney Electricity. And then, of course, you went in and you've lived a good portion now of your life up in Queensland. You played and captained for the Firebirds. Where's the heart sit?
I knew you were going to ask me that. But can I just say, it probably always will be New South Wales. And even when I'm watching the State of Origin Rugby League, it always is New South Wales. However, Queensland has really adopted me really nicely up here, and I do a lot of work with Netball Queensland and with their Diamond Spirit program, their Indigenous program, and I've travelled up to the Torres Straits and into Cape York with the work that I was doing with the state government as an Indigenous advisor, and so Queensland now has become my second home, and I probably wouldn't want to go back to New South because I believe everything's here for me now.
Yeah. It's like I said earlier, it is a beautiful spot. So let's go back. You were the second Indigenous player to represent Australia, and you said, and the last. And I can hear when you say and the last, there's a sense of disappointment that in the period of time since you wore the green and gold right up until today, we haven't had a third representative. So tell me first and foremost, do you think there's a reason why? Or number two, is there someone you've got your eye on that think could be that next person?
Well, you know, as you know, we've only got one Indigenous player in the Suncorp Super Netball at the moment, and that's Gemma Maimai with the Firebirds. And I know she's recently made an Australian development squad as well. So that's really good to see her, you know, moving up the ranks. I remember Lisa Alexander said before she retired that, you know, she would love to see more Indigenous girls in the national program. But, you know, I think we need to work out why that's happening. And, you know, 20 years since I retired is a really big gap to not have any girls that have come through the 17s, 19s, 21s, not make it to that next level. And you know, there's a lot of reasons. And, you know, obviously when you look at the disadvantage that Indigenous people have compared to non-Indigenous people, you know, and the cultural and family obligations that our girls have, you know, that deep sense of obligation to family. And, you know, I think, you know, access to, you know, some of the girls that are living maybe more remotely having access to the things that I had when I grew up in Sydney. And unfortunately, you know, there is still the discrimination that goes on with our people. Unfortunately, there are stereotypes out there that, you know, a lot of people only see the bad things. But, you know, we have a wonderful culture and it's worth celebrating. And I'm really, really happy to see that, you know, the Indigenous round's now taking place, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. But back in 2017, Netball Australia ran a Indigenous high performance camp in Canberra. Yep. And we had 20 Indigenous athletes come to that camp. Marciella and I were there, and Alison Tucker, or Alison Munro now, she was there, Jemison Power, and we had, you know, even Lisa Alexander was there and Caitlin Thwaites, and it was a really nice week bringing these girls together. So these girls that were currently playing at that 17s, 19s or A&L level, or at the time Beryl Friday was playing for the Firebirds, so she was down there as well. So she was a really great role model for those girls, sort of more current and, you know, now, whereas Marcia and I obviously sort of been a team a long time ago. But, you know, Marcia and I shared our story and our challenges and our barriers, and, you know, the girls shared theirs with us. And, you know, it comes down to cost as well, and it comes down to the level of support that you've got behind you, you know, to get through. Because I know, you know, when I missed out on the team for so many years, it was really, really hard for me to just stay motivated and do the training that was required. And, you know, unless I had somebody there pushing me and supporting me, there was no way I was ever going to get back into that team after 7 years out. And, you know, and I proved that I could do it, but that's because I had support around me and I had access to everything that I needed. Yeah, so, you know, and I think, you know, it's good now that we've got Netball Australia have a reconciliation action plan in place. You know, that was launched back in 2017 as well. And since then, we've seen some really, really positive things come out from the member organisations. You know, a lot of them have their own RAPs now.
Yeah,
a lot of them are delivering Indigenous netball carnivals and programs, and, you know, the administration and the coaches and all the people who support athletes are becoming a little bit more aware of what's required to work with Indigenous athletes. We developed a guideline for coaches so they could look at the cultural considerations when they have Indigenous athletes in their teams, a bit of cross-cultural awareness for the member organisations as well. So, but for me, you know, I feel my proudest moment is that, you know, I've been able to work with 2 associations here in North Queensland, one Cairns Netball, where I helped to initiate the Sharon Finnan Cup. So that's been an annual carnival every year for the last 6 years. And first and foremost, it's about participation and providing those participation opportunities for girls and women to come and play. And secondly, it was a good chance to identify some talented girls and bring them in for some development camps and talk to them about, you know, what's required to become a diamond, and, you know, nutrition and health, and talk to the parents about how do you support your daughter if you want her to take that next step. And I think that's a key thing I think that coaches need to be aware of, is that, you know, get to know the family, get to understand the dynamic of the family situation that they're coming from, and talk to them about, you know, what are the challenges, how can we support your daughter to, you know, to come through that pathway. So, but, you know, since I retired 20 years ago, I haven't stopped working in Indigenous community development, trying to, you know, make the pathways more culturally appropriate for our girls. And it's disappointing to see that still we haven't seen a girl take that next step. So we're obviously doing something, we're missing something.
Yeah.
And I spoke to you, I think, a while ago about an idea that I had of having an Australian Indigenous team to play against a Maori New Zealand team. I think we need to promote our girls a little bit more. We've currently got, I don't know how many are still sitting in that, the high performance pathway here in Australia, but I would love to see those girls really get promoted a little bit more. And if they're never going to make a Diamonds team, well, let's have an Australian Indigenous team that they can strive for.
Yeah, oh look, I really like the concept, Sharon. As I said to you, I'd do anything I can to support it. What I really love is I do think that I love how Suncorp Super Netball has, as a across the board now, have embraced Indigenous round. I know that South Australia and WA were very strong in initiating that in the early stages. So I've been a part of that for a while. I throw out there, I would love to see some sort of Indigenous, because I love how all the dresses get done and the concepts behind it. I know from my involvement with West Coast Fever that the players wear that dress with absolute pride in that round. It's a really special moment, and the whole week, and they have the smoking ceremony and everything, and the dress handover, and it's a really special week. And ideally hope that we can get to the point where this all becomes just a natural part of our existence, not just Indigenous history, but, for everybody. But I would love to see, and tell me, and I probably know what you're going to say, I would love to see a bit of, on the Australian Diamonds uniform, I'd love to see something Indigenous on that. I mean, we can go down the whole flag discussion. That's too big. I'm keeping it netball-centric. I'd love to see something like that on our Australian uniform.
I agree with you. I was actually having a look at this uniform here. Now, I'll just bring it up a little bit closer.
Is this the Kia uniform? Yes.
Now, there's some Indigenous design at the bottom of that one there.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I don't know if there's been any since then, but maybe there has. But I agree with you. I think that, I would love Australians to see our Indigenous culture as something worth celebrating. And, you look how the New Zealanders embraced their Maori culture, and it's just really lovely. And their national anthem is something that gives me goosebumps every time I hear it, because it's sung in language, and it's, if we could have something similar to that, that would be amazing.
All right. So here's what I'm going to do. So I had a real moment. This is a bit left of field from Neville, but I had a real moment not long back where I was watching a gentleman by the name of Mitch Tambo.
I don't know him, but I saw him too.
Yeah, and he was on one of the talent shows, and he sang John Farnham's "You're the Voice," but he sang it in his Aboriginal language.
Yep.
And for me in that moment, not that I've never not supported the unity of our country, but for me in that moment, Sharon, I'll be blatantly honest with you, it was something through music for me that just really resonated. And it was the first thing I thought of was the New Zealand national anthem, and how that's sung with passion, both when it's sung in Maori and then it's sung in English. And I just thought we have to get to this point somewhere with our anthem. So what I'm going to do at the end of this video, I'm going to throw Mitch Tambo's song on the back of this, so that everybody there that hasn't already seen this, and you probably have, sit down and have a listen to this, because if it doesn't put goosebumps on your arms and raise the hairs on your neck for the better good, I will be gobsmacked. So I promise we're going to do that. But what I've got to do with you, Sharon, is, and you're going to hate this, because I'm going to have to get you to sing, and then I've got to go to Mitch Tambo, who can really sing, unless you can.
No, jeez. Well, I'm glad you're doing me first, and I don't have to fight him, so that's good.
I'm glad we're setting. I mean, I had no idea I'm going to do this. I've now got to make sure I can find Mitch Tambo and get it in, but I'll sort that. So, are you a bit of a karaoke head?
Maybe back in my younger days. Now, probably not so much, but I have picked a very special song.
Oh, have you?
It's one that anyone who was coached by Carol Sykes and went back to her house for after parties at the end of the season. will know this song, and I bet you everyone's thinking, yes, they know it right now. So I probably won't be able to do it as well as Carol, but if you can just picture her sitting on her chair with these big fancy daggy glasses and a hat and a banjo, then I'll try and sing it.
Okay, all right.
I've got some music that goes with it too.
Okay, all right. Well, you set the music. I'm setting it. So we're going to say this is a tribute to Carol Sykes, won't we? Because that's a lovely, I don't even know what the song is, but we're about to find out. So this is for Carol Sykes, folks. Sharon Finnan-White about to belt out her karaoke.
All right, it's called the Old Banjo Song. Now, here we go. I used to play my old banjolo and rest it all on my knee. But now all my strings are broken down and there's no longer use to me. There you go.
I've never heard it before.
I knew you wouldn't. Anyone who's a New South Wales person and knows Carol Sykes will know that.
Oh, well, you know what? I love Carol Sykes. She was just an absolute sweetheart, and that suits her perfectly, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And
unreal.
Yeah. So yeah, Carol, we love you and miss you, and
yeah, we do.
Yeah, she had a big influence on my career as well.
Yeah. Well, God love you, Sharon. It's been unreal to catch up. I'm going to pop Mitch Tambo on the end of this. All right. And thank you for everything you've been doing for netball across the board, mate, not just Indigenous, but, representing the country. Really good to catch up. I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy this because you're a face that people probably haven't seen regularly out there for some time. So lovely to chat with you. Look after yourself. Stay safe. Stay cool if you possibly can up there.
Yeah, will do. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. Sharon Finnan-White, everybody. Let's hand it over to Mitch Tambo. See ya.
Yanni